Hello everyone. In today's edition of our YouTube live event, it's called Keeping Patron Data Updated. Okay, that's making sure that the patron data is always correct so that when you're going into circulation or if you're doing self-circulation, you should not have any issues with the circulation module because your patron data is outdated. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the patron record. So you come down to menu, then to patron, and then to patron management. When you go into patron management, it's always going to bring up your record. Okay, and that's your patron record. So if you're logged in as Lib, as I am, it'll come up with Lib. If you're logged in as Michael, Joanna, whoever you're logged in is, that's the record that's going to come up. So let me just move away from here and let's go to this patron. Now, the first thing you need to do if you're going to keep your patron data updated is you must make sure that the classification, which is the class grade, these are all your year levels in there. Okay, you need to have a class grade in here. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, when you go into the advanced area, you need to make sure that they can borrow. Very, very important. Okay, now with your patron data, if he's a class grade 12, if you look at the loan limits will apply to this particular classification. So if I click on the loan limits, it will tell me what the final borrowing date is, what the expiry date is, how many books they can borrow, for how long they can borrow, and so forth. And can they have multiple copies of the same book? And if it's a staff member, and you can say they can borrow 300 books for 365 days, you have to remember to tick the patron override. Now, before we go any further, okay, you can also add other parameters. You can say they can borrow 2 fictions, so I can go in here and add another one. It's not important to have it by media type. As long as you just have total, everything will work fine. Please do not change the patron data in here, in this area. You can change it. Okay, now let me explain. When you're looking at the login screen, and if you put a patron into year 12, automatically he's going to get all these parameters. Okay, he's going to get the parameters from the, and this is what the screen will look like. Okay, he's going to get all these parameters from a system file, which I'll deal with in a minute. Okay, but if you say, oh no, this particular patron, Mike Smith, he's an avid reader, he reads a lot, and I would really like to make sure that he can borrow 8 books, and instead of 14 days, I'm going to give him 28 days. Okay, and he can renew 8 books. So if you want to change an individual's borrowing parameters out of the entire year 12, if you're going to do that, you can't just do that, okay, and exit out. What you have to remember is at night or periodically what the system is going to do, it's going to look at all the year 12s. Okay, so let's go back here. It's going to grab all the year 12s periodically in the daytime, and it's going to compare it with the system parameter. And if these parameters are different, even though you said, yes, they can have 8 instead of 4, and they can have it for 28 days instead of 14, what's going to happen is the system says, this is out of sync with all the other year 12s, bring it back into sync. So if you're going to change an individual's borrowing parameters, see where it says lock the patron's loan limit, you have to put that in there. Once you do that, then it doesn't matter how many times the parameters for the year 12s change. This will be the parameters for this individual patron, Mike Smith. And just say for argument's sake, he destroys a lot of books and the books come back looking like a dog's dinner. So you can say, no, he's only allowed to borrow 1 book. He can only have it for 7 days, and he can renew 1 book, and he can renew it for 7 days. Okay. Now, if you say lock the patron's loan limit, that's it. So that means he can only borrow 1 at a time. Obviously, any changes you put here can be overridden at circulation by the library administrators. So you can say, if he comes to borrow a 2nd book, it'll say, Mike Smith's not allowed to borrow any more than one. Do you want to override? So in circulation, you go, yep, and you can override it. But this is his parameter and you've locked his limits. So it says do not change the limits based on the global class grade. So you can say, well, where do I set up all the borrowing limits for year 12s and year 8s and year 9s and teachers and whatever? I'm going to show you how to do that. So this is all about keeping patron data updated. So if you want to find out what the borrowing limits are and where you set it for the different class grades, you need to go to the menu. You come down to configuration and the authority editor. Now, when you go to the authority editor, what it's going to do is it's going to bring them all up in alphabetic sequence. So that's why audience is always up the top. So you choose, no, I want class grade. Remember, class grade 12, so class grade. So I click on class grade and that's where all my year levels are. So if I go to year 12 and I click on the pencil to edit it, it'll say that year 12 has a security code of 12. In other words, they can borrow all material up to a security clearance of 12. Okay, so if it was a year 9, they can only borrow material up to security of 9. So that's their final borrowing date, that's the expiry date, that's their loan limit, that's their loan period. So you put all your parameters in there and then you go save. Now what will happen is, as soon as you go save, instantaneously every student that was in year 12 will get the new parameters that are in here. Within a fraction of a second, they'll get that. The only exception will be that Mike Smith, where you said lock his limits and do not allow this system to override his limits. So that's how you set your borrowing limits. So at the end of the year, what you would do is you can come in here and go through every year level, call them up, okay, and you can just say the final borrowing date is this, the expiry date is this. As far as the expiry date, work out when you're going to leave the school, then add another 10 years and make that the expiry date. Okay, so you never have to bother with that again. The only one that you need to worry about is when you want all the books back in the library. So if you want all the books back in the library, you can go ahead in here and you can say, I want them back on the 13th of December because school closes on the 15th. So you can do that, okay? So that's how we keep the patron data updated with all the current parameters. However, let's go back into my Patron Management, and let's go and find Mike Smith again. So we go in here and we go into Mike Smith. Now Mike Smith's parents have married and he's changed his surname, or he's changed his email address, or he's changed his homeroom, and you get notified by the office and it'll say that here are 50 students that we have changed their details in the admin system. Or they'll say here are a complete list of all the students in the system according to the administration system. These are all their new details. So their new details might be their admin number, it might be their email address, it might be their surname, it might be their homeroom, it could be anything. Now, if you have a school that has about, say, 500 students or even 100 students, to go through that list and manually go into the patron record, then go find and then call up SM, call up, all right, that's the, John Smith, call up his record, fix it up, then go find again and then bring up the next Mike Smith, fix it up, then go again and go find and then bring up Mary Smith and then fix it up. Very, very long-winded, very tedious way of doing it. We believe that all this mundane bulk processing should be done automatically and simply, okay? And if you've never ever done a bulk patron import that's going to change all your information, you might want to consider doing it. And once you realize how quick and simple and easy it is to do, you might want to do it every day. Do a patron import. Just go to the staff in the admin office and say, staff, before you go home at night, can you please make sure you email me a list of all the patrons? And they'll say, You mean only the patrons we've changed? You go, no, I just want all the patrons every day. Or you say, I want this every Friday night or first thing Monday morning. I want a list of all the patrons from the admin system because I'm going to update my library system. Really, really simple. So if you're going to do a patron import, we'd recommend you do it at least once a week. And that way you should really never ever need to click on menu, to go down to patrons, to go down to patron management and manually go and click on the find button, okay, and find a particular patron in the system and then go, oh, I've got to change his email address, it's changed, or he's in a different homeroom, I've got to change that. So instead of doing that, why don't you just import them every week at the worst case? My recommendation is do it weekly, do it once a day, but that's up to you. So how do I import and how simple and easy it is? Because if I have to spend more than 10 minutes thinking about it, I'm not going to do it. And I can guarantee you that it is literally only a minute. So what you want to do is you click on the menu, you'll go into mailbox and you'll send us a little email in the mailbox and say, I'm planning on doing a patron import today. Can you please tell me when you've backed up my system in case I need to reverse it all out, in case I stuff it all up? So you can make a request like that and say, let me know when you've done the backup so I can then play and do a patron import. And if I stuff it up, I'll call you straight away and get you to reverse it. We can do that for you. So let's say all of that's done. You get notified from us. We've done the backup for you. Okay. And so you can go into patron. And instead of patron management, you go to smart patron import. And the smart patron import is an amazing utility. Okay, so if you're going to import a patron, I'm not going to click that button, but I'm going to show you what the data would actually look like on a patron import screen. Okay, and so here is my computer. Okay, and in my computer, I've got patrons, patron data, and I've got patron data with headers. What's the difference? You need to know that because you might get your data like this one, or you might get your data like this one. Okay, and you need to know which one you are getting from your admin. It doesn't matter which one, you just need to know which one it is. So let's go to patrons with header. When I click with patrons with header, okay, and I'll go open, this is what the data looks like. It's got a header. It tells you what the name of the first column is. It's the patron ID, then comma, then the patron name, comma, then the surname, comma, barcode, comma, year, comma, homeroom, comma, email. That's what that is. It's just the header. So when we say patrons with header, that's what we mean. It's got a header, okay? And when we're talking about patrons without a header, exactly the same data, just doesn't happen to have a header. You can bet your bottom dollar that when they give it to you, they'll give it to you with a header. Okay, that seems to be the pretty general average, that everyone gets data with a header. Makes no difference to the system. What you need to know is before you even go to the header into the system, you need to bring up the raw data, and you need to make a note and identify the columns of information. You need to know the first column is the ID. The next column is the name, surname, barcode, year. Now, you won't necessarily get your data in this order. It might be you got the email, then you got the name, then you got the ID, then the surname, barcode. Another school, you might have the year level, then the homeroom, then the ID, then the date of birth, then the name, then the surname, then the barcode. Another school might be you got the barcode first, then the date of birth, then the parent's name, then the surname. It doesn't matter the order. The only thing that matters is that you know the order of the data. That's it. So just make a note on your piece of paper. Say number 1, ID. Number 2, name. Number 3, surname. Number 4, barcode. That's important for you to know because when you go to import, it's going to ask you what is this column name, what is this column, what data is this in this column, what data is this in this column. That's all you have to tell the system. So now let's go into the Smart Patron import. Okay, so when you click on Smart Patron import, All right, this is the screen you're going to get. You can watch the tutorial, but after this, you don't even need to watch the tutorial. So it says, has it got a header? Okay, so remember the header, you put a tick in there. If it hasn't got a header, you just remove the tick. Okay, now a comma delimited CSV file. What that means is that we are looking at this kind of a file. Okay, all the information is separated by a comma. 99% of data you'll get will be separated by a comma. That's what that is. Okay, and it's called a CSV. Okay, so now comma delimited CSV file, and we go upload the file. So I'll click on the upload button and it will go somewhere. In my system, it's going straight to where my data sits. In your case, it might just come up with C drive. Okay, so you need to know where you've stored that file that your IT department or that your admin department have sent you. If they sent it to you by email, just save it somewhere. We don't care where, you just need to know where. Now, in my case, I've put into a folder called junk. So when I open my junk folder, there it is, patrons with header. So that's the file. I just double click on it. And what will happen is the data will come in here. The first thing that you need to do, the number one thing is, how are you going to merge all this data with your existing system? That's number one and very important. Okay, so it says merge by barcode, and I go no. Merge by the email address. Yeah, so if everyone has an email address, I can say if my record that I'm importing has the same email address as a record that I've got on my patron system, merge them. If it's not, create a new one. So I could use the email address. I can use the external ID if I've got the external ID stored inside here. So I can merge by external ID. If they've got the barcode and they're giving me the barcode, I can put the barcode in here. Okay, or you can say merge by the full name. So the full name means it's going to take the first name and the second name, and if the record coming in has the same first name and second name, and the record that's in your library system has the same first name or second name, it's just going to merge that data. And if not, it will add a new patron to the system. The most common way of merging data is full name. The next common way of merging data is external ID, if it's never been done before. Okay, but you can't go external ID because what's going to happen if you don't have the external ID stored in the system, every record you bring in will get duplicated, because it'll say, I've got an admin number called 38. It's not a barcode, it's just the admin number. It's 38. And I'm looking at your system and you don't have a patron with an external ID called 38 because all your existing patron, that number is blank. So what it's going to do, it's going to duplicate that record. So you'll have Michael Fernandez, no external ID on your system, and you'll have Michael Fernandez on this new import you're doing as record 38. So it says, oh, well, they don't have a external ID 38, so create a new record. So you've duplicated him. Okay, so you're better off to just choose full name, okay, to get all your data in. And when you're doing full name, also import the external ID into the system. And when you import that external ID into the system, you can then say, so if I've got a Michael Fernandez on my list of patrons I'm importing, and I've got a Michael Fernandez on my library system, and the external data has an ID called 38, take that 38 and put it into Michael Fernandez's record in my library system into the field called external ID. So you need to do that once for everybody. And once you've done the import, then the next time you can still go and do a full name merge. But if you turn around and say, no, I'm going to do an external ID merge, that's a really neat, guaranteed way of keeping all your data together. Because if the record that you're importing has an external ID of 15 and the record in here has an external ID of 15, it'll say it's the same patron. So your surname might have changed because the parents have remarried. It said, doesn't matter. It's the same patron, so update their surname here. However, if I did a patron import with full name and the external system had Michael Smith and the old patron record in your system had Michael Fernandez, if you did it this way, it'll say, oh, that's a new patron because I don't have a match, and it'll create a new one. Okay, so very important. If you can't be bothered and just want to play it safe, just use full name all the time. But if you've never done a patron import ever, always do a full name import first. That'll bring everybody into the system and bring in the external ID as well, so that the next time you do a patron import, you will match by external ID. Okay, now that I've got all this data in there because I've clicked on that, you have to tell the system what column information. So remember when we were talking about the patron data, I said you need to make a note. What's that first column called? What's the second column called? In my case, the first column is ID. So what I will do is I'll click here and it says, please tell me what this is. So if I click down here and I'll say that's external ID. So just go down here and that's the external ID. Okay. So basically the external ID is going to come in over here. All right. Now the next column so the next column was the first name. So if I go back into my data, and yeah, it's my first name. So I'll say this next column is my first name. So I'll go into here and go first name. The next column was the surname. So I'll click on here and I will say surname, PQR, surname. Okay. The next column is the barcode. So I'll say this was the barcode. Okay. And then tell me what this column is, and so this column is the year level. So I'll go and say this is class grade, so classification. The next one was the homeroom, and the last one was the email. Now that you've got all of this in here, okay, and we're mapping by the external ID. No, we're mapping by the full name. Okay, so I will go, give me the next step. Okay, and it will show you that that one is importing the header because I didn't tell it that the first line is a header. But the next one, it tells you that it's going to be Mike Sanderson, so classification that. So it's showing you what the data looks like. Okay, now if you're not quite sure, you can click on load more results and it'll give you more results. But if you're happy that, yep, all that information's correct, only then do you want to go perform the changes. So go perform the changes, and what will happen is it's going to send you a security code. Okay, now if you exit out of the screen to go and find the security code, you have to go through and start all over again. So what you should be doing is grab hold of your URL. Okay, so I'm going to go copy and open up another browser session because we don't want to exit the screen. Open up a new browser session, put this code in there, okay, and bring up your system. So you've got your import data there, and that's the second page that you've got, a second instant of it. And remember, it says you need to put in the security code here. Where do I go for the security code? That's easy. You click on the menu button, you click on mailbox, okay, and in the mailbox we have sent to you in the system area the security code. So open that up and there's your security code. So you just highlight just that code. Okay, just highlight it, then right click and go copy. Once you've copied that, you go back into your screen and you paste. Right click and paste. Why do we go around with all this rigmarole? The reason why we do it is because we don't want other teachers and staff members playing around with import, so that, you know, if we do this, we're guaranteeing that you know what you're doing. We're guaranteeing that you've got the security code and put in there, and you just go, I'm now going to confirm. And it says, this cannot be done, undone. Are you sure? Remember, you asked us for a backup, so we can undo it for you if you asked us to back it up. So just go, okay. And then it goes through the system, doing whatever it needs to do. If there were new homerooms, it'll create it. If there were new classifications, it would create it. If there were new patrons, they were created. If patron details have changed, it'll merge it all. But it's gone through and done all of that, and it says successful. And you can go, that's it. I'm just back onto my school collection. Great. Patron import was easy as anything. I'm happy with that. I'm going to start doing my own patron imports. I don't have to ask IT. I don't have to ask anyone. I can do it myself. And my recommendation is, if you're going to do a patron import, okay, and you've got 500 students on the system, bring all the information up and go ahead and do this. Highlight all the patrons except for 2. And then just go delete and just play around with just importing 2 patrons. So if it stuffs up, in the worst case, you're only going to stuff up these 2. Okay? Save this record and practice on just these 2. You might practice on 1. My recommendation, put 2 in there, or even 3. Save this record so that you can then go back and call up Mike, or call up Sanderson, or call up Dean, or call up Jones, and make sure that this is what their data was. You might want to go into their record before you did the import, and you might want to change their class grade to left in 2006 or left in 2007. Change the class grade so that when you do an import, you can check to see, did it make it a year 6 and did it make it a year 7? Yes, it did. Fantastic. I know that works. I know how easy it is. I've done a patron import 5 times over and over and over again just to check it. I've gone and checked all the data. Now what I can do is I can say, that's it. I'm now going to go and do a full patron import because I've played around with it. I open that file up. I'll check there's 500 records here. Yes, it has a header record. So now what I'm going to do is it all works. So I'm going to go into my menu, into patron data, go into smart patron import. It had a header, so I have to make sure that I tell the system it's got a header. If it didn't have a header, take it off, okay, and just go import. Good luck and have fun. And that is a new, very powerful utility where you had to wait on IT and wait on everybody else to do it. Now you can do it yourself, and you can do it every day if you want. That's how simple it is. Thank you for engaging with us on keeping Patron updated in Smart Suite. And you don't have to worry about having to pay extra for an extra module like our competitors. With Smart Suite, it includes everything. We want to encourage you to engage with every feature, every function, and every module. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, subscribe. So every time we do an event like this, you'll get notified of the topic and the event. You can sit and watch it, or you can say, no, I'm just going to subscribe so that when I get notified, I'll go and look at the YouTube live event later at my leisure. Thank you very much for giving us your valuable 30 minutes.